if Perlibis continues to ignore player feedback, right, they risk a steady decline in active users. The player base will shrink, the in-game economy will suffer, and so Black Desert Online players have been giving feedback for years, and it feels like the developers are just still really not listening to us, right? And that's easily documented over the history of BDO. So why are our voices being ignored? So today I'm going to be kind of looking into the disconnect between Perlibis and its player base and how that is contributing to the decline of the player base. Also, this is part 2 of the Downfall series, so I highly recommend you checking out part 1, which looks at all of BDO's content and looking at, is it either relevant or irrelevant, and how that all ties into Silver. Also, there are many factors that is currently affecting BDO, and this is just one factor of many other factors. Also, I'm saying also a lot. Look, I love BDO. Me and this game has had a serious relationship since 2016, and I want this game to thrive, which is why I'm creating more awareness on these topics, and I hope the community as a whole can reach PA and make the changes much needed. And look, not everyone is perfect, especially a gaming company, and they have made good changes over the years, so we still need to give them credit when credit is due. But just remember, I love this game and I want it to thrive. So with all of that being said, let's jump into today's video. So let's get straight to it. One of the core frustrations among BDO players boils down to a few things, but in this video, we're going to be focusing on feeling unheard or being ignored, right? You know, whether you're a casual player or a hardcore player, you've probably voiced your concerns about class balance, no new actual content, quality of life improvements, server stability, and, you know, really the list just kind of continues on. But it seems like, you know, these issues time after time are just never really addressed, or maybe they are, but just only partially addressed. Or we get content that we really never asked for. Like, remember, for instance, I think it was about 4 years ago when they released the Papu content where you could just become one of those and just fight each other. And it just really didn't look good at all. And everyone in the community was so confused by it. We did finally get central servers, which seems like that did help a little bit with the lag, and I'm glad they did follow through with that. But, you know, in terms of like node wars, we should just have our own separate servers for those, which many players have been asking for, right? Like, for instance, look at War of the Roses. That content has its own separate servers, which does help with the lag. Another aspect is the node war changes. Now, granted, it seems like overall the community does not like the new node war changes, but there's really no good data to look at, like the exact numbers. But either way, it seems like PA did not really take feedback on those new changes and have just kind of stuck with the current system. And I think we can see that overall, you know, node wars, at least in NA, are not doing very well. Also, when they changed open world with not allowing the one-sided decks, you know, that pretty much killed the infamous open world aspect that many people really enjoyed about BDO, and honestly has been a staple feature in this game since like forever. And, you know, it was one of the prime reasons that like gave you an incentive to gear up. But, you know, there was a ton of feedback on that, and many people, including me, did not like the change. And look, I hate when I get interrupted when I'm grinding, but guess what? I would just either switch servers or go into the Marnie realm if I didn't want to worry about open world PvP. And, you know, it's not just about PvP, even like on the PvE side, like having big in-game raids or more like unique dungeons, or having like an endless PvE dungeon concept, which I think they said they were going to maybe try to release something like that in the new expansion, probably a few years later down the road. But even like simple quality of life features also people have been asking for. And, you know, it's just things that over the years have just kind of built up. And like I said, I'm not saying that PA hasn't done any of this, right? They have. They have attempted to do as much as they could. But I think the issue is they just really haven't been taking the proper route of getting good feedback, right? What else has the community been asking for? Been asking for more rewards, like for PvP incentives, which, you know, they did try to do that by adjusting Red Battlefield, and they did increase the amount of money, which I think if you win, it's like 50 million. But granted, it's still really not enough. Like if you compare all the content, and again, this is kind of like my previous video, but if you compare all the content, PvE, grinding in a circle, is going to be the best money per hour that you can do. And so all the other content kind of lags behind. But again, they are trying. I'll give them credit. Also, keeping the Arena of Solaire, just keep it in at all times. Why does it have to be seasonal? And even with it being seasonal, when they took it out, they didn't even bring back Guild League in place of Arena of Solaire. So yeah, I mean, there's you know, an exhausted list, and it's not just from like NA EU, it's from multiple regions too. So what's the deal with Pearl Abyss? Are they not listening, or do they just not care? Remember Jay, the head person of the game, stating, I think it was last year, that he needs to change and be more open and listen. Like what happened, Jay? What happened to the change that you expressed that you need to do better? Yet the updates that followed didn't really reflect much of what the players actually wanted. And sure, yes, they've released content, but was it the content that the majority of the player base wanted? And I think that's important to highlight. The majority of the player base wanting that content. I would say probably not. But yeah, you know, when Jay was speaking during that ball, it honestly felt more of just like a marketing campaign than kind of like an honest discussion. Almost like he was like pretty much saying like, don't forget about it. They won't remember what I said. No, Jay, we have not forgotten about what you said. Like this mixed messaging has just really left a sour and disgusting taste in many of the players' mouths, right? One day we're told our feedback is valuable, and then the next we see a patch that just ignores the most critical issues raised by the community. So, you know, if you've been around long enough, like me, since 2016, you've probably lost count of the number of times that they said they were going to do something and did not follow through with it. So this leads us to the player reactions. So if you've been on Reddit, the official forums, or any community Discord lately, you know exactly how heated things have become here recently. And even the in-game chat has been cooking, right? So there's a growing sense of frustration, and players are quitting, and pretty much, you know, just having a general message of, we've had enough of this crap. And, you know, the impact is real, and it's hitting Pearl Abyss hard. You know, their numbers are down, their stocks are down, which is why all of a sudden Land of the Morning Light 2 is going to be releasing much sooner now, which let's talk about that. They were seriously going to hold the content back because it wasn't dubbed. Like bro, who cares? Like I feel like most actual gamers watch anime and they watch it sub because it just sounds better and it's not cheesy. Just kidding, by the way, about you not being an actual gamer. If you don't watch anime, but seriously, what are you doing with your life? Just watch the Sword Art Online. Okay, it will change your life, and you can thank me for the recommendation later. It is such a good anime, especially season 1. But yeah, pretty good. So what does this all mean for the future of Black Desert Online? Let's be real. The game can't survive without its community. If Pearl Abyss continues to ignore player feedback, right, they risk a steady decline in active users. The player base will shrink, the in-game economy will suffer, and ultimately the game could lose its relevance in the competitive MMORPG market, which until recently, when BDO released Lane of the Morning Light, the first one, the game has actually been on the upward trend. And so we really just need to get back on that path. So what's the solution? For starters, Pearl Abyss needs to genuinely engage with its community. And I mean all of its communities with all of the regions, right? I'm not talking about, pre-scripted question and answer sessions or vague promises at the Heidel Ball. I mean, real open communication, right? Ask the players what they want and implement changes that reflect that feedback, right? Transparency is so important, right? And developers, PA developers should just be upfront about what they can and can't do, and at least provide like a roadmap that reflects the community's priorities and not just their bottom line. And, of course, you can't just look at one person's feedback, right? It's got to be from the community as a whole. Like look at old school RuneScape. There's a reason why that game is still so popular despite the 1990s graphics, because the developers listen to its community. It literally has a poll system built into the game where players can vote on that change for the game. And I think at least you need 70% of the community saying yes for the change to be implemented. Like, I feel like that would be a pretty easy thing to put into BDO. And then you could look at the different regions' opinions on those subject matters. Like, the community should have been asked first if we wanted, one-sided decks to be taken away from the game. And I bet most of the community probably would have said no, right? Or at least came up with different solutions on the best route on how to handle, open world PvP. At the end of the day, Pearl Abyss can either continue to ignore the voices of its community and risk a decline in their player base, or they can start listening and turning things around, right? So what happens next is up to them. And to us as players, we just need to keep pushing for the game that we want, right? We need to keep giving our opinions. We need to be firm on our stances. And we just need Pearl Abyss to realize that our feedback is valuable, And, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that BDO is going to die like other people in the community, right? This game is very unique and the combat is the best in the genre. But statistically, if we look at the numbers, the game is declining. But hey, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that the poll system would work in BDO? I think it could, but hey, what do I know? I'm just some average unknown YouTuber dad who plays games in his bed and makes some content on the side. But hey, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.